What's up, everybody? This feels so weird saying like an intro when it's just you.
Right?
Very special guest to the Not Special Show today, and somebody I actually served with and who went through a lot of the same stuff from my book, Not Special, and his name is Logan Cox. And he's probably the funniest dude that I served with in the military. So,
I don't
Logan,
know.
take it
There were
away.
some funny ones. I appreciate the compliment. There were some funny guys in our unit.
Yeah, maybe not intentionally funny, but there were some funny guys.
Very true. Most of them that
Your
were funny were not intentional.
Your, I think, favorite funniest, he makes an appearance in the second book that I've already written. And I think you know probably who I'm talking about.
Was he an E5?
I can't, he was.
Okay, we can say that much. That's fair.
Yeah. I just wrote the crazy story of when he just kind of disappeared that one time. I don't know
Oh
if you
yeah,
remember that or not.
yeah. He's
Yeah,
gone for a couple of
just,
days or weeks, I think. Yeah,
I love
that
it.
was a fun one.
Yeah, yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah,
Dude, what
that
have you
was.
been up to?
I think. Oh, I've been up to nothing. I do nothing now that I'm out of the army. I have tried everything. I tried to be a comedian. I tried to be a real cop and work in the real world as a cop outside of the army. Now I just have 4 kids and I work from home and I take phone calls for a medical software company, which is great all in its own.
Dude, you have 4 kids now?
4, yeah, I have. And we did it the best way possible. I think we have a 16, almost 17-year-old that I had while I was in the army. You know her. And then I have a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 18-month-old. So we like to start over often at our house and
Yeah,
just
you
restart with
just
kids.
yeah, you like to not have any time to yourself for the next 20 years probably now.
Yeah, I just wanted my calendar booked till I was 60 is kind of what I was going for, and I think we've accomplished it at this point. So
Yeah. There is something about we just had a newborn and we have a 6-year-old daughter and it's really cool to see like them become like little siblings and she takes care of that baby and it's so cool.
yeah, my daughters do the same thing, and I have all daughters and one boy. The baby is the boy, so these 3 other girls just treat him like he's like their little stuffed animal. They just love him. They want everything to do with him. I'm like, yeah, keep that energy when you're teenagers and when I need you to help out. So
Yeah, dude, wait, I didn't know that you went on to be a civilian cop. How long did you do that?
I guess I worked for the sheriff's office for 4 years. I did work for a civilian police department for a really short amount of time, but most of my stuff was done working for the Maricopa County Sheriff's office. I did 2 years, joined the army, did 2 more when I got out.
Oh, you went back?
Yeah, that was my first job back out of the army. Well, I guess second technically, but yeah, I went back there for about 2 years.
Damn, what was it like going back there after being in the army?
It was different. It was way different. Like the sheriff's office itself had changed. So when I was working there the first time, they were getting sued a lot for a lot of like racial profiling stuff. And then the sheriff got voted out when I went back the second time, and it was just way different. It was like what they considered like kindler, gentler. So it went from the days of like being in a jail and like teaching people, hey, you probably shouldn't come to jail, and it like wasn't a great time for them. And then when I went back, it was like kinder, gentler. It was a lot of hand holding, a lot of like, oh, hey, it's gonna be fine. Like, hey, sorry, you just punched an officer in the face, but like we can talk about it. And it was way different. And I've heard it's even worse now.
Damn, what made you want did that make you want to leave
It was a
the
big
second
part of
time?
it. Big part of it, yeah. And then I had 3 kids at the time, and I worked our central intake area, so people were coming in straight off of the streets. They were high, they were ready to fight. They didn't like cops in general, because who does when they get arrested 30 minutes ago? And we got into a lot of fights, and I had a partner that him and I did everything together. We worked together all the time, and he ended up getting into a scuffle one day with an inmate, but it was supposed to be my turn. And we would go back and forth. He would be like, hey, you get to handle this guy, you go hands on this time, now it's me, kind of back and forth, taking the brunt of the issues. And one day it was supposed to be my turn, but an inmate had kind of made him mad and pushed his buttons. He was like, hey, I'm going to go in and handle him. Well, when he did, we didn't realize that the inmate had taken a piece of the phone, like a payphone, in the room, and he had been filing it down for hours, a piece of metal. And my
Oh
buddy
shit.
walked in, and he got stabbed. He's fine, totally okay. He had a stab vest on, so he was all right, but it was one of those, like, kind of grab you by the shoulders and shake you moments where you realize, like, hey, maybe I don't want to do this anymore. Like, maybe I don't want to come home with extra holes in my body that weren't there when I left for work, and have to explain to my kids what happened. So for me, it was like kind of a clean break where it was like, you know what, I need something new that isn't so stressful with all these kids.
Yeah, and you probably start to realize too, like, I've done some cool stuff. Like, my, like, cool stuff meter, it's all filled up now. It's just time.
Yeah, and dangerous stuff too. Like cool stuff we did a lot of in the Army, I think, and then like dangerous stuff I did quite a bit of in the Army, just getting myself into stuff. And then getting out, it's like, you're right, I don't want to do it anymore. All that stuff's done. I'm not 19, 20 years old anymore. It's time to be an adult a little bit and not be so reckless, I guess, is kind of where I was with it.
Dude, imagine being like, so I did some work recently with some guys that are they're still in, but they came in like the same time you and I went in, but they're still in. And I'm just like, I've lived so much life since I got out. We got out like 10 years ago. Yeah. And they're still in, just still doing it. And they, one has a kid like in Hawaii that he doesn't see but once a year. And I just think, man, what a life. That's a whole different life that I couldn't imagine living.
Oh yeah. I mean, we've been out now twice as long as we were in. I think you did 4 years.
Yeah.
I did 4 years. Yeah, we've been out longer than we've been in. It's weird too, because like I'll catch myself talking about the military and then realizing like mid-story, like, wow, that was so long ago. It wasn't recent anymore.
No, it's really not. But it does. I think it was obviously that's such a big part of your life. Like, it just sticks with you. I think we'll be 60 and still feel like it's just yesterday.
Yeah, and I mean, the crazy thing too is like no one's experience was exactly the same. So it's fun to like have these conversations too and like talk about it. I think that's why we all continue to talk about it years and years later. And I actually learned something from your book that I didn't experience that was like new for me to get to experience through the book, which I thought was really cool. And that was I didn't do the hotel. So after MEPS, I didn't do like the hotel stay, or before MEPS, however it happened.
Yeah. Dude, that's a wild, just think of a whole hotel of basically, it was a barracks before you knew what a barracks was.
Yeah.
And you never did really do the barracks either, right? Because you came in married to our unit.
A couple months, yeah. So, yeah, I guess, like, to back up the story a little bit, when I joined the Army, I joined older than most people. I was 20 at the time, I think, maybe.
Yeah.
And I basically was that guy that was like, I'll never join the Army. Screw that. I'm never going to join. Like, the dummies. And my brother was in the Army. I wasn't, like, anti-military. It was just, like, I can make better money outside. Is kind of what my mindset was. And then 2009 happened, the world ended, and the economy collapsed, and I was stuck without a job. And at that point, it was like, well, do I go work at McDonald's or do I join the Army? So I joined the Army, and my recruiter really kind of hooked me up because I had a wife and kids, or kid at the time. And she didn't make me go to MEPS and do all the paperwork all the time. They did like the delayed entry program that she pencil whipped.
Oh, yeah.
I went in as an E3. And then what else? And I didn't have to stay at the hotel. She let me stay at home. And then the morning that we were supposed to go to MEPS, she picked me up from my house. We drove to the hotel, and I helped her pick everyone up from the hotel.
Oh, damn. She did hook you up then.
Yeah, so I saw it from a way different point of view. So, like, hearing your story of this guy coming in and having to drink the, the drink to pee good and not, fail the drug test, like, I was like, what the hell? But knowing what I learned a few days later after that, MEPS event, I don't doubt your stories at all, because the people we met in the military were those types of people.
Yeah, and we were supposed to be, being an MP, they tell you, like, you're above reproach, like, you're the best of the best. We were shitbags, dude, like, everybody.
Oh, yeah, I mean, we all thought
the worst of the worst.
Yeah, we all thought we were the tip of the spear. We weren't even the sheath that the spear goes in. We were absolutely nothing. But they made us think that when we stepped foot into the real Army, we were the biggest, baddest motherfuckers out there, which was just not true. It was a ragtag bunch of misfits that were just fuck-ups in real life.
Do you think that every MOS gets told that? Or is that just an MP and kind of infantry thing?
I'm sure it's a big Army thing, right? Everyone thinks they're the best. If you talk to an engineer unit, they all thought they were better than us as MPs. The MPs thought they were better than infantry. Infantry thought they were better than everybody. So I think everyone just had, these big balls that they were told to have, and everyone just went with it.
Yeah. Dude, what was it like joining with a kid. Like, what is that's got to be such a trip.
Yeah, that was tough. Like, basic training was the weirdest thing for me because I went from, like, seeing my kid every day and being involved in her life every day to now all of a sudden I get one phone call a weekend that's 15 minutes long and I have no idea what's happening in their life.
Yeah.
To me, that was the hardest part, was just being away and not having communication.
How old was she when you went in?
2.
Damn. So she kind of knew what's going on, or not really?
Vaguely. I mean, probably not. I joined when she was 2, and then they got there. She was just about to turn 3. So when she got to Germany, I think she understood more. But like me being in basic training, I think she has, to this day, has no idea what happened or where I was, or that I was even gone for a period of time.
Yeah. What was it like being married with a kid in a foreign country? Like, we were kind of up in the air too, because we got there really close to the same time to our actual unit.
Yeah.
And, are we going to, it was always, we might deploy, always. And
Always.
Till,
I mean, yeah, it was tough. It was hard, and I was only there married with a kid for a few months. So I think I got there in August of, what would that have been, 2009, I think. Yeah, August of '09 is when I got there to country. They didn't get to us until the week of Thanksgiving. Because if people don't know, like, you don't just get to hand your family a ticket. You have to do paperwork. That paperwork has to get approved. It has to get a second approval, and it's just moving up the chain of this, like, army bureaucracy that's so slow. And it literally took, I mean, the first day I landed, I said, how do I get my family here? And they said, we'll start the paperwork. We did. And then it took them till the week of Thanksgiving to actually land on ground. And that was the earliest flight that we could get after they got approval for travel.
Man, that is crazy. The bureaucracy is so real. I was going to say,
it's insane.
It's one of the reasons why I didn't want to do law enforcement anymore, because, I mean, our unit, we were a garrison unit. And had no power whatsoever. The tickets we wrote were completely worthless. They didn't mean anything. Maybe, I don't know how many people you actually saw in that little jail cell that we had at the PMO, but I think I saw one person in there in 3 years. Like,
he was from our unit, if I remember right.
It's just completely pointless. So it's just, you just kind of get bummed out about it, and then having a family.
Yeah, I arrested people in the Army for stuff that was, like, real arrestable shit. I wasn't going after, the Army regulation violations. Like, I was looking for stuff that was, like, real crimes in the real world, and that's what I would arrest people for. And I would arrest them, we'd call their commander, the next day they were doing whatever the hell they wanted in their life, living as if nothing ever happened, and most of the time the units on base hated us enough that the discipline was up to them, not up to us or a judicial system. Unless you killed somebody, sexually assaulted somebody, then you're dealing with a court system. If you were speeding, you were drunk being an idiot, you got into a fist fight, we dealt with you, and then your unit dealt with you, and most of the time you'd get a slap on the hand, you'd have to, pick up a CQ shift and work a 24-hour overnight, and then you were done, free and clear.
Yeah, because the unit didn't want that to get put out that somebody was being shitty in their unit, so they just swept that right underneath the rug. Oh,
absolutely. And they would, I've heard, first sergeants, company commanders go to the PMO desk asking if we could remove their incident from the police blotter so that it didn't get put out to the garrison for everyone to know what their soldier did. And we always told them no, but they always would ask.
Yeah, and then you see, like, the backroom dealings with all the higher-ups, back there in the hallway, and they're looking at you like, what are you doing? It's like, what are you doing? What would you say you do here?
Exactly.
It was so weird.
There were a lot of those questions that I wanted to ask of, like, who are you and why are you here? Because it was like every other person that you ran into, especially in Germany, had a job, but they never tell you what they did, and you never saw them doing anything.
Yeah. Like remember the bald dude back there? He was like he was a sergeant major, maybe. What did he do? I think he dealt with all the people trying to get their shitty arrested people, like, off of something. I don't know. We sound like a bunch of narcs right now is what we sound like.
It's not that we're narking, and we're not saying names. We're just letting and you know what? One thing that my mom told me when I got out of the Army, she was like, what was it like? Or that was the first thing she asked me. Like, what did you do? What's day-to-day like? And when I broke down our day-to-day, she was like, I wish that I knew that, because that's what our taxes are going to. Like, what in the hell? And I'm like, yeah, man, if you knew the amount of stuff that we did with your tax money, you would be appalled.
Oh, appalled. Remember all the ranges? Why are we going to a 50 cal range? We're not ever going to use that.
I
That's
mean,
like, how much is a 50 cal round nowadays? $5 a
oh,
round, maybe?
they're, I mean, a lot. And we shot a lot of them. We spent a lot of money in other people's ammo.
For no reason. I
No
mean, I
reason.
get it. Sure, maybe shoot, 20 maybe, but it's like, hey, we got an extra 500 rounds. Who wants to shoot them off? It's like,
Yeah,
me, I
exactly. I
guess.
mean, in the equipment that we had was garbage. I mean, we were working the road. We went to a range once, and I remember one of the people in our platoon was up to shoot, and the barrel of her pistol split in half.
I was her range safety. I was
Okay,
holding the back of their vest, and
yeah.
she just went,
I think it was next to her in
uh,
line. I heard it, and I looked
what?
over, and I watched her barrel fall apart, and I'm like, "What?" And my safety's behind me, telling me to keep shooting. I'm like, "Okay," and like
Yeah,
watching her just have a complete failure. I'm like, "When's mine gonna blow up in my face? Like, what is happening
yeah.
here?"
Did they?
Um,
What did they change now? Like, what do they carry now? What's the service pistol for the
I
army?
don't know. I don't think it's the Beretta 92s anymore. I think it's something different. As soon as I got out of the army, I stopped caring what the army was doing.
Stopped. It's crazy. They're still
Yeah,
taking the PT test, though. I do know that. The same,
yeah,
I think, 222.
yeah. That's the same as it was. I think when we got out, they had just switched it to that when we got out.
Yeah, dude,
But
it's
I
so
never did
funny.
it.
Yeah, because do you want to talk about why you didn't do it, or?
Yeah, we can talk about it. Yeah, no, I guess one of the chapters in your book you talk about sick call, and sick call was something that I avoided forever. I avoided it in basic training, but I had to do it one day in Germany. And the issue was is that every time we'd go running, my nuts would hurt, but like bad. And I tried
Yeah.
everything. I tried spandex. I tried tights, keeping them up there, whatever. Nothing worked. So finally, I went to sick call. Doctor told me to take ibuprofen and drink water. I tried that for a couple of weeks. Obviously, it didn't work. And then I went back, and they actually did like a full exam, like a full physical, right? And the doctor's doing the full physical, has me pull my pants down, checks my nuts. I turn around, unbeknownst to me, she shoves a finger in my butt, and then just wipes
You
me
got
like
the
a baby
surprise
with a.
finger? You
Yeah,
got
dude,
the surprise finger?
dude, worst dentist I've ever been to in the army. No, I'm kidding. She was a real doctor, but didn't tell me. Just said, "Hey, turn around." I turned around. I heard gloves turn on. I was like, "Okay, like maybe she doesn't want my nuts in her face anymore." Like I went to pull up my pants, and as I bent down, she saw her opportunity and just fingered in. And yeah, it was
And
shocking.
wiped you? She wiped you.
Well, she had lubed it. She lubed her finger up and then shoved it in, and then wiped the lubricant out of my butt crack. Yeah, just a doll of a lady. And then told me that I had basically varicose veins that had dropped into my nuts and that I had to have them surgically removed. I said, "Then why'd you check my butthole?" And she said, quote, "'Cause you were here." Yeah.
You're
Yeah,
like
man.
23. I think I'm good on the
Probably, yeah.
prostate.
22, 23 years old, yeah, at least. Yeah. And full prostate exam. I think she curled her finger a couple of times. It was shocking. I went back to the barracks
Did you
and
come?
everyone was like, they're like, "Dude, are you okay?" I'm like, "No." They're like, "What happened? Like, what'd they tell you is wrong with you?" I was like, "I don't know, she stuck her finger in my butt." And everyone was like, "What?" But yeah, and basically what happened though, to get back to the real topic, was the veins from my leg, like varicose veins, dropped into my nuts essentially. So when I would run or do any physical exercise, my sac would fill up with blood because those veins ended in my nut sac, and it would fill with blood, and then it would take all the blood back out of it. So basically my nuts were like a heart when I would work out. So I had surgery, which military surgeries are cool. I was an Air Force doctor. He said, "Hey, you're going to have an eighth of an inch of a scar." I have an 8-inch scar on my crotch that looks like an earthworm, like trying to come out of my skin.
No way.
Yeah,
No way.
I'm 10% disabled because of it, because they disfigured me, which I guess that's nice. But yeah, I mean, I would have
On
liked
your
to not have
nuts?
to.
Or like,
It's like the up above my penis. It's like the pubic
oh,
area.
okay.
Yeah,
Like the
but
root.
there's like a solid 8-inch scar that looks like an earthworm coming out of my skin.
Dude, did that solve it? Or does it
For the
still
most part,
bother
yeah,
you?
it doesn't bug me anymore.
Damn.
But it made it
What?
where my last few months in the Army, I couldn't run and I couldn't really do workouts and PT stuff. So, like, it was fun for me because I just live in Germany and eat great food and drink beer, but then I never worked out, and it became a problem right before I got out.
That was right before you got out. I remember that. And you had a name for him,
Earl.
right?
I called him
Like Carl. Earl. I knew it was
Earl.
Earl or Carl.
Yeah, I figured if he
Yeah.
was going to hang out with me for a while, he should have a name.
Why not have a name? You know?
Yeah, yeah, everyone knew
Damn.
him,
Okay.
knew of him.
And then when you got out, you were like, "Well, thanks for the disfigurement." And then you were just so kind of in the flow of not working out, eating whatever you wanted. Like, did it take you a while to get back into somewhat of a routine?
Oh, dude, it was bad. I ballooned up. And like we just said, we've been out for like 10 years. I progressively got worse and worse. I think the day I got out of the Army, I was like 208, 210, something like that. Not terrible, but bigger than I should have been for being 5'11". You know, I was starting to put on the pounds. It took me a lot of years to figure it out because when you get out of the Army and you don't have some big drill sergeant screaming at you or some platoon sergeant like the one we had for a long time that'd be running down your throat and screaming at you, you don't run as much. And I never worked out. It just was an afterthought. And I ballooned up to 275 pounds. And I didn't really care about it. I just kind of let myself go and it was just worse and worse. And finally I got to a point where I tried to tie my shoes and it hurt. And I was like, I should probably lose weight. And I started the weight loss journey in March of this year, and I'm down to 215 as of today.
Yes, dude.
Yeah, it's huge.
That's
and
awesome.
Like, it's life changing. I feel better. I look better. I can hang out with my kids again and like keep up with them. But I think a lot of people don't realize that when you get out of the Army and there isn't some dude screaming at you at 6 a.m. to go run as fast as you can, you're not going to. And I've seen a lot of guys that I know get out and have a real issue with weight because they don't know what to do.
Oh yeah, I didn't know. Like, I was workout guy before the Army, so I didn't have a problem working out. I just had a problem with doing anything other than working out. Yeah, because like you said, your day is regimented out. You have to be at work at a certain time. You probably have to do some sort of paperwork. You got to do PT or try to get out of it. In our case, always. But you always had something to do. And you were told what to do, and then when you don't have anything to do and nobody telling you what to do, I just laid around and watched Duck Dynasty until I think I got about 3 weeks in after I got out. My wife came home and she was like, if I come home one more fucking time and you're watching Duck Dynasty laying on the couch, I'm going to lose it. Do something. Go get a job, get a hobby, do something. I was like, I don't know what the fuck, what do I do? I haven't had a choice in so long.
It's a real lost feeling.
It is, dude. It is. Did you go back to the same city that you came from?
Oh, yeah. Exact same. I went to my mom and dad's house is where I went back to with my daughter. It was just me and her at the time. And I went back to the job that I had in high school because that's all I could get at the time. I was working security at a Kohl's. I was catching shoplifters at a Kohl's at, 28 years old, straight out of the Army.
Dude, that's so crazy you say that because when you get out and you think that companies are just going to be handing out like CEO jobs, like C-suite level jobs because you're in the military.
They make me think.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, dude.
Everyone's going to want you.
On your resume.
No one's not going to want you. Everyone's going to take you. They're going to be lining up to get you because of your discipline and because of your military service. Couldn't be any further than the fucking truth. No one wanted me because I was a veteran and everyone thought I had PTSD and was going to fucking shoot up the place.
Yes, dude, I got turned down from a landscaping job at a high-rise here in Dallas. The guy was just like, I don't know what to tell you. I was just I don't know what to tell me either.
Yeah, I tried to
They
work
wouldn't
at a
take you?
casino. No, they said no because the tactics, their exact words were the tactics that I learned in the military are dangerous to their environment in a casino. And I instantly just realized that was the moment that I realized that employers think that everyone in the military has PTSD and everyone in the military is unstable. And it just absolutely isn't true. Like, you and I the closest that we ever came to combat was shooting at a range, which was the furthest thing from combat. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It was crazy.
Did you say the skills that I learned, you mean downloading illegal torrents? on a VPN? Like, what?
Yeah, I mean,
What are you
figuring out
talking
how to
about?
disappear or blame other people or get other people to do jobs for you. Like that was the skill that I learned, was using my E4 rank to my benefit to tell an E1 to mop when I didn't want to.
Big skills, scary.
Yeah,
Those are
delegation.
scary skills. Yeah, dude, it's so funny. Like, I just went back to what I knew, and I ended up working at an academy for all of, I think, about 7.5 hours. Went through like some online training, and then the manager was like, "All right, go out there and meet your, little manager." And it was like an 18-year-old kid, and he was like, "Organize those kids' bikes." And I just kept walking right out the door. Sorry, academy, sports and
Yeah,
outdoors. She's like, "I just got out of the military. I can't be. This is ridiculous."
yeah, and that I think too is a big problem. That you got some kid that lived in the civilian world that never went through the army, thinks he's a tough shot, and then you get a guy like me and you that like, although we weren't special forces, we didn't deploy, we did some shit. Like we saw some
Dude,
stuff. Like
yeah,
I saw dead people when we were MPs. Like I've been to car accidents and seen all that stuff, and now I've got some 18-year-old kid telling me what to do. No thanks, I'm not interested.
yeah, dude, man. So okay, wait. So what is the main difference between being 275 and 215? Like, did you have zero energy that high of a weight? Like, what's it like
Um,
being a big guy?
yeah, no energy. I was always tired, very self-loathing. I kind of hated myself and knew it. So, like, when a
Damn.
joke would come up or something would happen, it'd be like, "Oh, the fat guy did it," and I would say the joke to like make myself more comfortable. So it was a lot of like depression without knowing it because I was sad all the time. I was sad of making fun of myself. I was sad of getting people looking at me. Like it was to the point where like a 2X shirt looked like I was wearing a medium, and it was like skin tight, and it was embarrassing. I felt bad for my kids. I felt bad for my wife for multiple reasons. Right, going out in public with me, having to be in bed with me, like it was a fucking nightmare. And now that I've lost the weight, I realize that like you just can't, like I can't ever let myself get to that again. You have to have some bit of self-control and discipline that I didn't have because I think I was forced to have it so long in the army that when I got out for years I was like, fuck that, I'm not doing anything. I don't want to run, I don't want to work out, I don't want to get on the elliptical, I don't want to eat healthy. And I didn't.
Yeah, man. Having the choice is pretty scary. Like,
Yeah,
we were only in the military for 4 years, but you think about like, man, we were told everything to do, everything.
everything.
Like our
You were
whole
told,
days were planned.
yeah, when to stand, when to sit, when to go somewhere, when to not be somewhere, when to disappear and be invisible and not have anyone hear you, when to, everything. I have been told everything in my life for 4 years, every single day, and then you get out and you don't have clean food to eat, right? DFAC was fairly decent food compared to other shit. We only had a
Yeah,
couple of fast food restaurants, and then the German economy was so expensive that I never really ate there. And if I did, it was going to like a good restaurant, like a steakhouse or somewhere like decent
oh,
food. And then you get out of the military, and there's a McDonald's on every corner, a Burger King on every corner, Whataburger, all the bullshit. In and Out. There was an In and Out across the street from my parents' house. The days that I would go at 1 in the morning and get a double double because I could, and then go home to bed at 1:30.
what do you?
It's a different world. What are you gonna do? They're there. Why wouldn't I go at 1
Why
a.m.?
fucking? Why wouldn't you go?
Yep.
Damn. Okay, so when did you get into stand up comedy when you got out? Because you were
Um.
always, we were joking like the we were your audience, like captive audience. We couldn't go anywhere if you were in a squad car with you, and you were just
Oh.
fucking cracking out jokes all the
Yeah,
time.
I mean, there were a lot of times that, like, anywhere, and you and I talked about this in a text beforehand, but P tests, I would tell jokes because I had an audience. We'd be in formation waiting for the sergeant to come out or whatever, and I would be cracking jokes to everybody. In a patrol car, in the briefing room, anywhere I could that people weren't allowed to get away from me, right? That was my audience. You had to
Yeah.
stay in the rooms that I was in, so it took the most of it. But I really got into stand-up probably 6 months after we got out. And I'm going to name drop someone that we were in the Army with. It was Michael Madden. Madden, I know you're watching. He talked me into it. He was like, dude, come on,
No
just
way.
try it. He's like, you're so funny, just do it. You have to do it when you're out. Like, send me the video, and I just did it one day. And I signed up, and I went to the Tempe Improv here in Phoenix, or in Tempe, and you had to bring 5 people, or 10 people at the time, I think. So you had to bring 10 people to get on stage. If you didn't bring 10 people, if they didn't say your name at the ticket counter, then you weren't getting on stage. So I made sure I had my 10 people. I got on stage and did 5 minutes, and it was the most fun that I've ever had not having fun, if that makes sense. My wife's family was in the crowd. We were dating at the time. Both of her brothers that are older than me, her mom, her dad, family friends came with them, and my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time. And I had 5 minutes to do my set. I blew through it in 2.5 because I was so nervous. And the next joke that I thought to tell was because another friend of mine in the audience yelled it out to me. So at work, I had told a story about eating chicken wings, and then my wife and I doing some stuff, and he yelled it out. He yelled, "Tell the chicken wing story." And I was blanking. I had no other jokes to tell. So I told this story about a time that my wife and I ate chicken wings, and then we did some sexual stuff with each other, and then she found out that I had wing sauce on my mouth the hard way, I guess is the short version of the story, and her mom and dad were in the audience.
Oh, dude!
Yeah, man. So the first time I did stand-up was just a fucking nightmare. But I did okay. I got laughs, and that's all I cared about at the time. I didn't really care about hurting people's feelings or who heard a crazy story. I just did it. And then I did it on and off for probably 5 years.
Oh, damn, for real?
Yeah. I would do shows probably 3-4 times a month. And then I'd go a month without doing it, and then I'd go back to 3 or 4 shows in a month. And I did that on and off for like 5 years, and kind of worked my way up to doing open mics to being able to like open for actual like headlining comedians, which was kind of cool. I actually got to do a show. It was the last show I ever did, was with Bert Kreischer. I think I kind of realized opening for him was kind of the peak of what I would ever be at, because I never put a lot of time in it. Did a show, had a great amount of fun. He's the coolest dude in the world. And Bert, I know you're watching this too. The nicest guy I've ever met. He was so kind, so nice, like took care of me. The first thing he did when he walked into the green room was he had like a Christmas bag, like a gift bag, and he was like, "Hey guys, if any of you want this," and he dumps it out onto the couch in the green room, and it's just weed. It's so much weed. And I literally had been out of the army like 2 years. I think I was like still very like police minded before I started doing civilian stuff. And it was like, I was like, I can't touch that. What are you doing? It's not legal here, because it wasn't legal in Arizona yet. And he was like, whatever. And he was just lighting stuff up and just having a great time. He was the coolest dude ever.
Dude, that's awesome. Do you think that people just give him shit wherever he lands? Just like, here's a bag of drugs?
It was a local weed place that did like medical marijuana, brought him like a goodie bag to a radio show that he was doing. He was like trying to sell tickets on the radio, and they brought him in a bunch of stuff.
Wow. So did you, during those 5 years, were you constantly like writing new stuff, or were you just cool with what you got?
I was always writing new stuff. I was always trying to take like my life experiences and turn them into stuff. At that time I worked at the sheriff's office, so I had a ton of content that was you couldn't really be told anywhere else. In honest age, people were more accepting to it than like in public. And that's really how I started in comedy, was like in the army. Outside of the army, I was always like the quote-unquote like funny guy. I never thought I was super funny, but everyone was always, Cox is here to tell some jokes, like, and that's how it started, was just being that guy at parties. And then it evolved into like Madden and everybody else that we were in the army with, you going like, dude, when you get out, like, go do an open mic. I think it might have even been you and your roommate that were trying to talk me into going and doing an open mic at Irish Pub downtown.
Oh, but yeah.
I wouldn't do it because I didn't think anyone would understand me other than the Americans that were there. And I was like, no, maybe not. But you guys always tried to get me to do that.
Damn. So did you just kind of get sick of having to write a bunch, and that you realized the time that it would take to actually move past opening for?
Yeah, in the time commitment. Like, I had a job at the time. I had 3 kids. I had 2 for a while, and a third one came. So it was like, it was just too busy for me to do it. I didn't have enough time in my day to focus on it because I had kids I had to feed, I had a wife I had to take care of, I had, rent and all that stuff I had to make sure came first, and then I would do shows second, and it was just never enough time to like become a big thing.
Yeah, that's one of those things, like, I'm sure it's super fun, but also you have a life to live, and you can't just be writing jokes and fucking off for 40 hours a week, which is what it takes.
And to get stage time, you have to have 10 people show up to the shows, and most of the open mic shows are like a Wednesday night. So you're really like hounding people and like pissing people off to go to your shows. I would go get my hair cut, and I would get they would give you a stack of tickets. I would get a haircut, and I'd leave a stack at the front counter. I'd go into an ice cream store, and I'd leave a stack at the front counter, hoping that people would come to the shows. And most of the time, I would just go buy tickets for myself because they didn't know who I was. They'd be like, hey, I need 3 for Logan, because I knew I needed 3, and they'd give me 3 tickets. I'd pay $15 because I think they were like $5 a ticket, and then I'd be able to get on stage and do jokes. And I knew it wasn't sustainable, so I just was like, you know what, let's focus on the family and making my kids better instead of like dad trying to be a clown all the time.
How has it been? Do you miss it at all?
Oh, well, yeah, I love it. And I watch stand-up comedy all the time. My wife is my audience. I'll write a joke in my head and I'll tell my wife or the kids or somebody. So yeah, I mean, it's still a passion of mine. It's something I love watching and I'm a big fan of, and I like doing, because it is challenging in a weird way.
Yeah.
It's like writing a book.
Yeah. Do you go through the similar things where you kind of start hating your... Oh, shit. Sorry, don't look at that. You start hating the sound of your own voice, and even hating your own, not hate, but you're like, damn. You try to convince yourself not to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I would tell myself a joke so many times, or I'd say it out loud so many times, I'd go on stage and say it, and I would absolutely hate the joke because I've already heard it 30 times and it's worn out to me. So yeah, it was a lot to it. And then like the writing process too, right? It's the same as kind of what I've heard you describe your writing process has been. I did a lot of quiet sitting, a lot of watching things, a lot of observing things, a lot of like not being present around my kids because I was watching them for content, and it was just weird. It became like more of a work than a fun thing for me, and I was at that point it was like, you know what, I'm good.
Yeah. Okay, you got to tell the story of pre-Army. This was it. Maricopa County, is that the name of the county you work for? So that, if people don't know, that is Sheriff Joe, right? That was his name?
Yeah, so back then, my first time working there was Sheriff Joe Arpaio. Kind of a crazy dude in real life, like beyond what you saw on TV. Like he would walk up to you in full uniform. I would be in full uniform. He'd walk face to face to you and go, do you work for me? I think so. I think, and it was like he would do weird shit like that would just catch you off guard. And he was very like, anytime we saw him, there was a camera crew with him. It was always media, always publicity, every single time. So he was kind of a lot. And he had what he called the Tent City Jail, which our jails were so overran and so overfull, instead of spending the money to build a whole new jail complex, what he did was built old military tents, the same stuff that we would do like our field training exercises in. They built them and built metal frames for them instead of the wood frames, like the poles that we had to set up. They built custom metal frames, put the tents over them, and then you would have 30 inmates that were sentenced, sleeping outside 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year in Phoenix. But the cool thing is that those inmates got to go to work for the sheriff's office. They laundry, cleaning, cooking, whatever, and they would get what they called 2-for-1 time. So if you had 6 months in jail and you were sentenced and you could get to Tent City and go work there, instead of doing 6 months in jail, you would do 3, and then you'd get half of your time off. Yeah, so it was like a lot of people looked at it as like, oh, how inhumane and how are they doing this to people? But really, it was like a benefit for the inmates to be there, because all of our inmates were doing 12 months or less. And if they were doing 12 months and worked, they could get out in 6 months.
How fucking hot were those tents, though?
Hot as fuck. And that's not a joke.
Hot.
It's we would have like the like the temperature guns that like AC repair guys have. We had those, and we'd go out in like the middle of June, middle of July when it's 120 degrees out in Phoenix, and you'd take the temperature off the top of the tent, and it'd be like 180, 190. I think the hottest I ever saw was like it was like 202 or something like that. It was scorching hot, and they had big fans. But you'd walk into a tent that had the tent flaps down, you'd walk into it, and it'd be like opening an oven that was at 500 degrees. It would just hit you in the face with heat. And,
damn.
It wasn't inhumane, because what people didn't understand is that when the daylight hours, so when the sun was out, they had full access, unless there was an emergency, like a medical emergency. They would have full access to a day room, and their day room was air conditioned. It had TVs, it had showers, it had food, it had lockers for them to keep their stuff, and they were allowed to be in there, basically until the sun went down. When the sun went down, everyone had to go back out to their tents and out to their bunks.
Does it get cooler at night there?
I mean, 10, 15 degrees cooler, yeah. The tents would cool down way more. The outside temperature would still be pretty hot, but without the sun hitting the green tent canvas, it would cool down pretty quickly.
Yeah, and that was known for, correct me if I'm wrong, the pink uniforms too, right?
That was everybody in the sheriff's office. Everyone wore pink underwear, pink socks, and then black and white stripes. And then at Tent City, we had a giant tower. It was like a surveillance tower, military tower, that he had found an old vacancy sign from a hotel, and they put the vacancy sign up. And it was priority number one. If that sign ever stopped blinking and the lights ever went out, we immediately shut down operations, locked down all of our inmates, and called a maintenance crew out to come and fix it, because it was priority number one of that jail.
Whoa. How long was he sheriff there?
Years and years. I don't know off the top of my head, but it was like 10, 15. He'd been elected like 7 times. So he'd been there forever.
That's fucking crazy.
He did all kinds of crazy shit to the inmates though. Like he made it a point to tell them that they ate for less money a day than he fed the canine dogs. Like the police dogs, he would say like inmates eat for like 49 cents a day. The dogs were eating like $1.50 a day. So like
that's fucked up.
He made that a big point. What other kind of weird shit did he always do? Oh, at Christmas time, we would play Christmas music from sunup to sundown, and it was a CD of like 7 songs. So you would hear, we worked 10-hour shifts. You would hear the same 7 songs like 300 times a day. From Thanksgiving night. They started at Thanksgiving evening until Christmas morning. They would play, and it was like American, like Christian Christmas songs. It was like Kwanzaa songs. There were some, Hanukkah songs in there. So he covered all the nationalities and all the religions, but it played nonstop as loud as possible. And it was the same thing. If the speakers ever stopped during the day, it was priority number one to get up on the roof and figure out why and get them back up and running.
Whoa. Good priorities, it sounds like.
Oh, dude, it was crazy. It was all media. Like, while I was out there, Mike Tyson was out there. And ESPN had cameras. And they were in the yard. That's what we called them. Like, where the tents were big yards. And we had a private tent for Mike Tyson in a private yard that was shut off, secluded from everybody else. He came in, they walked him through, but as they walked him through, they didn't do it like they did normal inmates. They brought him like through the back gate, and they let the news and media line up across like the walkway. So as he's walking in, there's ESPN cameras, Fox Sports cameras, everything you can think of lined up. Dude. Yeah. And then they all left, and he went to his tent, and no one was allowed to talk to him. He just sat there quietly. I think he was supposed to do like 3 days in jail for whatever his crime was, and he ended up he did like 8 hours. And then they processed him out and just kicked him out.
Oh, yeah. Come on.
Yep, he wasn't there very long. He was very short amount of time. And I think it was more like a security thing. Like, we had our jail SWAT team surrounding him the entire time, like, protecting him. Because, and you would hear it. Like, we would hear, like, guys walking around the yard where they're like, oh, fuck, Tyson's here? Like, all right, everyone's going to know who I am now. Like, all the inmates were like, oh, I'm going to make a name for myself here because I'm going to beat up Tyson. It's like, dude, first off, you're not going to beat up Mike Tyson. Like, he's going to beat the shit out of you. And number 2, like, we're not going to let you get to him. But, yeah, he was the first celebrity that I met out there.
Damn, did you meet any more?
I met Shaquille O'Neal. He was there. I think our sheriff like deputized him, and he was like a special deputy for a while in Maricopa County.
Oh, no shit!
Because he played for the Suns, and he is like Shaq's a real cop. Like I think right now he's like a LAPD reserve cop or something.
Damn, I forgot about that.
Yeah, he was like a deputy for us for a while, so he would come out every now and then, like take tours, and like just a giant, nice man. Like he was the coolest dude. I met Charles Barkley out there. Different situation. He was an inmate.
He was an inmate there?
Yeah, he got a DUI and had to do some time out at Tent City. And we had two different sides of Tent City. We had what was called in-tents, just the word in-tents, and that was people that were like sentenced to a year or less. They were in jail full-time. Then we had another part of the jail called contents, where they were only in part-time. So there were guys that would come in and do weekends. They'd get a DUI and they'd come serve Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, and they'd leave Sunday evening. We had guys that would come in and they would leave from jail at like 6 a.m. to go to work, and then they would, like a real job, and then they would come back at like 7 or 8 at night, and then they would just spend the night at jail and then get to go to like their actual job during the day.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's where Barkley was, because he was working for TBS or wherever he works doing commentating, and they would let him leave to go commentate the games, and then he'd have to come back and check in or whatever he had to do work-wise, and then he'd have to come back in and do a couple of days. Glenn Campbell, the Rhinestone Cowboy, he was out there for a while.
Yeah.
For the same thing. DMX was out there.
You got DMX?
Yeah, rest in peace, DMX, but that dude's a piece of shit. And I very openly will say that.
No, dude.
I almost tased him the first day that he was out there. So they don't tell us when there's like a celebrity out there, because they didn't want us to make a big deal out of it. And DMX had been kind of out of the spotlight for so long at this point when he had got arrested. It's like 2000 and, I don't know, probably 2009, 2010. Or no, I guess it would have been before that. So it would have been 2006, 2007 maybe. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so he's in jail for speeding or something, like criminal speed or dogfighting or something. But they don't tell us that he's there. So I'm going around doing a head count, making sure all of our inmates are there. And they were supposed to go to the laundry facility to go wash clothes. And I'm calling names. I'm like, so-and-so, and they're here. And they get up and I watch them run off. And they go get in line to go to the work truck to get over to the laundry room. And I get to another name that's like Earl Simmons. Like, Mr. Simmons, get out of bed. Not moving. So I had a clipboard, I'm banging on the bed, and it's a metal shitty bed, and I'm banging on the bed, and he's like, you better leave me alone. I'm like, dude, just get the fuck out of bed. You need to go to work. And this dude jumps off the top bunk, squares up on me. At the time, I'm like 19 years old. It was before I was in the Army. He like squares up with me, and he starts barking at me. Like, no shit.
Oh, shit.
And I'm like,
oh, all right.
What the fuck? So I just pull my taser out. I got him, it's on, ready to go, lights at his chest. I'm yelling at him to get on the ground. I'm on the radio. Inmates trying to fight me. Everybody get over here. And everybody runs. We get him on the ground. We handcuff him. Nothing really crazy happens at that point. We cuff him up, and then my buddies are all laughing at me. And they're like, dude, what the fuck? And I'm like, what are you guys talking about? Like, what did I do wrong here? They're like, do you know who that is? I was like, I have no idea. I was like, some asshole that didn't want to get out of bed this morning? And they were like, no, dude, that's DMX. And I was like, oh shit. Oh, that explains the barking. Like, I had no idea.
Did the barking sound like his music?
Just like you hear in the songs. Yeah, it was just a deep dude trying to bark to scare me. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Now looking back, you got a live little concert, basically.
I mean, pretty much. Yeah, I wish I would have tased him. It would have been a much better ending to the story, but he complied, and it wasn't that big of a deal.
What, do you remember that it was always like, first of all, do you know if they ever got tasers or pepper spray, like carried as MPs in Germany? Maybe somebody listening can fill us in.
Yeah, someone listening tell us, because I know they sprayed us telling us that we were going to get pepper spray, and then it never showed up. They also told us that any civilian police department would take that little paper as certification, and then we wouldn't have to do it again as a civilian. That's bullshit, because I had to do it again when I got out of the Army for the third time. When I went back through the academy to get back to the sheriff's office, I had to do it again. So, that I don't know. And then tasers, I tried to go to like a taser instructor school, but they told me no, because in Germany they feel that like the electrical pulses of the weapon is like torture, and they won't let it in their country, which I thought was weird because they did way worse stuff.
Okay.
We won the war. We won the war. I can say it, Ryan. You know, so yeah, it was. I doubt tasers are there, but pepper spray, I would hope that they have.
We really did get bamboozled. I haven't thought about the pepper spray.
And we had a guy in the unit,
never...
we won't say his name, he was allergic to it, so he was in the hospital for like 3 or 4 days because he had an allergic reaction to something that we never were able to carry anyway.
Yeah, so that was not pointless at all, now was it, everybody?
Right.
It was always hanging something over our head. Hey, we're going to get pepper spray, you guys are going to be serious. Okay. We're going to get tasers, we're going to be serious.
We were going to get new cars.
Yep, new cars,
or
GPS bullets on our cars, so y'all can't fuck around.
Yeah, or bullets you weren't able to take the actual bullet out of the casing and dump the powder out and then put it back in and then hand it to someone for their shift. They never gave us new bullets.
Hey, we're real serious, guys. We're real serious around here.
Dude, if something went down on that base, it would have been a shit show.
A shit show. What was the first time you think you realized, man, this is not what I had signed up for at all?
Easily day one in Wiesbaden. So my story was kind of similar to yours from the book, where like you got picked up by the airport and you were told that they forgot about you.
Yeah.
I was not. I made it by bus or whatever it was. It was a Mercedes Sprinter van. They got me. They got me to Wiesbaden and then took me to a basement of a building that was kind of creepy all on its own. I sat in a room for a few hours, got handed some paperwork, and then was told to go stand outside and my unit would come get me. I was there for 3.5 hours sitting out front of the building. No one came to get me.
Out in front of that in-processing building right there?
Yep, I was sitting on the steps of the building, and a very well put together, good smelling Puerto Rican sergeant staff sergeant came up and talked to me. He ended up being our platoon sergeant for a while, and he was like, "Hey," he's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, and I stood up, parade rest. I was like, "Oh, Sergeant, I don't know where I'm supposed to go." He's like, "What unit are you in?" It's like, "The 148 MP platoon, Sergeant." He was like, "What the fuck?" He was like, "Get my car," and like made me get in his car. He drove me to the barracks and got me in processed. And then that same day, all of our platoons, or all of the squad leaders, all of them were in the room, like they always were. And they, new guy coming in, they're asking me questions, they're trying to say things to me. One sergeant accuses me of lying about something that I absolutely wasn't. They were just trying to fuck with me. And one of the other ones goes, "So Cox, what do you think about that? What do you think about him calling you a liar? Like trying to get me to like shit talk a sergeant?" And I remember it was at that moment that I went, "What the fuck am I doing? Like, why am I fucking here?" And I'm standing at parade rest and trying to think in my head, like, how am I going to get myself out of trouble right now? Not into trouble. And I went, "No, Sergeant, I'm not saying that he's a liar at all. I'm saying that he is misinformed and has been given the wrong information, and I would like to correct that information for him." And they all stopped, and they went, "Get out of here." And I was like, "Okay." And I think I wasn't fun to them at the moment, so they were like, "Get out of here."
Yeah.
And then someone, I don't remember, I do remember who it was. I don't know how to describe this person to you without giving them away. You know who he is.
Male
he went in, male. He drove a car very similar to a popular one that a couple of the E4 Mafia guys drove, but he did it to be cool and then blew up the radiator.
I think I know. Yep.
Okay.
All
I
right.
think you know too.
Yeah.
He went in. They called him in after they sent me out, and I was standing out in the hallway, like waiting to like get all my gear and stuff for the road, in that other room right across, and I could hear them just lighting him up, and he didn't handle it as well as I did. So that was the moment that I realized, like, what in the fuck am I doing? Like, why did I do this? Like, why am I in Germany right
now?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
We had to protect people. That had to have been hard for you coming from an actual law enforcement to you now get to write pointless tickets.
It was weird, and I tried to make the best of it. I think a few days into working the road, I realized that it wasn't what I had thought it was going to be, and it wasn't as close to, like, civilian law enforcement as I thought it was going to be. And at that point, I kind of decided, like, just have fun. This isn't what you thought it was going to be, but you're stuck here for 4 years, so make the best of it. And that's really when I think, kind of really started to think, like, I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to kind of go to the beat of my own drum here, and I'm going to be a cop the way I want to be a cop, not the way that the Army tells me to be a cop. And I did, for the most part. And I had a lot of fun arresting officers' wives. And I had a lot of fun, spouses were male spouses were my favorite to arrest. Because they would just do the dumbest shit. And you're like, dude, just stop it. Like, I arrested one lady 4 times for driving without a Army Europe driver's license. 4 times. And she told me I was picking on her. And I said, no, you drive a loud, fast car and you don't have a license. Like, what do you expect me to do? Yeah, she was my favorite person to arrest because every time she would ask me if I knew who her husband was. Like, I don't care. I don't care who your husband is.
We definitely don't care because we hate our lives. So
and at
we
times,
don't care.
like, I would smart back to her. She'd be like, do you know who my husband is? I'm like, no, you don't? Like, and like, just to piss her off. But yeah, it was that a lot. But yeah, I mean, being a cop in the Army was way different than being in any law enforcement in the civilian world because we had the freedom to do whatever the fuck we wanted. We were never watched because our sergeants didn't give a shit because they wanted to go hide. I mean, how many times would you not be able to get someone on the radio and then you'd find out that they were in their room sleeping? They were parked behind a snowplow in June in a shed sleeping. You know, like, we did shit like that all the time because we weren't regulated like real cops. So it was like, it was kind of the Wild West, I guess is the best way to describe it.
It really was, and nothing was going on, so you weren't like getting calls constantly. So you just had free time to go walk around Germany, drive around Germany if you wanted to.
Probably 99% of the time was absolutely nothing going on, or it'd be like a loud noise complaint that wasn't even that loud. That you're like, hey, can you just turn it down? They're like, sure, and then it was over. Like, we very rarely did stuff, but when stuff would pop off, we would get we always had the normal, the normal stuff, right? The family fights. We had people attempting to hurt themselves. We had, we had some child abuse cases that we got. I don't know if you were ever doing those. I know I took a couple of those, but they were so few and far between that, like, you would kind of forget what to do in between them because you weren't doing it for so long, depending on what shift you were working.
Yeah, it was I guess that is one of those things that you kind of just forget about, the child abuse stuff, the domestic violence stuff, and that was not an expectation that I had going into the Army. I thought everybody was going to be fucking G.I. Joe and so squared away, and that's not that at all. There's lots of domestic violence.
Yeah, I mean, and how many welfare checks did we do going in? And I know I did a bunch of these where you'd go into a house and it was just like trash everywhere, like beyond imagination, trash everywhere, dirty diapers. There was one house that we went into that was like literally like 4 or 5 like dirty shitty diapers and then a giant dildo right in between them, and it was just
you had dirty diaper dildo.
Yeah, man, it was like, what the fuck? And just like bedrooms with like 30 bags of trash. It's like, why are you walking this from your kitchen to your bedroom? Walk it outside. Like, what are you people fucking doing? And I think that's a big part of the military that gets overlooked, right? No one talks about that. There are, and I'm going to use a term that may not be a very nice term, but I'm going to use it because that's what we called them. But there were like welfare soldiers, right? Like people that would openly tell you, I joined the military because I was homeless. I was living in a van. I had nowhere to go. I had no other options. I had nothing happening in my life. And those people were not always, but sometimes such a wreck that they didn't know how to function in regular society, and then you throw them into this weird environment that is the military and expect them to thrive and do well, and they just can't. Like, a lot of times people were set up for failure, in my opinion, in the military.
Oh, totally. Oh, yeah, especially in, the OCONUS in Germany, in our instance. You're living basically in a German town that just happens to be American apartments. Yeah. And you're expected to figure that out on your own. Like, what the fuck are you even talking about?
Right, you get 3 days of a class that teaches you everything you need to know about Germany. No, it fucking doesn't. And it was incredibly hard. And I think, like, for me too, like, even being like a single parent, because I was only there with my ex for like 6 or 7 months, and then she left. She literally got on an airplane, emailed me, told me it was over. I said, whatever. I got on an airplane, got my kid, flew back home a couple of days later, and it was me and her for the next 3.5 years as a single dad. And our unit,
in Germany?
Yeah, in Germany. And our unit was great. I'll give them as much credit as I can, because we shouldn't always shit on them, right? They weren't always bad, but for the most part, they took care of me. And they let me work day shift. If I had to work a night shift because we were short, someone's wife stepped up to watch my daughter and take care of her. And like in that aspect, they all took care of me. In other aspects, I thought that they were really shitty, and we had a lot of poor leadership. We had a lieutenant come in right towards the end of our time being there who told me face to face, he doesn't have children. He was like 21 years old, straight out of fucking West Point. He told me that sometimes to be a good dad, it means not seeing your children or neglecting them for a little bit, but they'll come back to you and know that you love them. Because I was trying to... yeah, because I was fighting the fact that they were trying to make me work nights, and I would never see her. And as a single parent, like, why would I want that? And that's what he told me. I've never been more mad in my entire fucking life. That was the only moment in the military that I thought, I'm going to beat the shit out of an officer right now.
Oh, I don't know if you remember or not, and he makes an appearance, a big one, in the second book that I wrote. His basically first weekend experience. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah. It
when
was... He thought he was Mr. Tough Guy, Mr. Football, Mr. Tough Shit, and he learned quickly that some PFC isn't going to take a fucking word that he says out of uniform.
Not even a little bit. Dude, I forgot that you were a single dad in Germany in the military. That's crazy.
For 3.5 years. I was there for 4 years.
Did you get a chance?
Half they were with me, half they were not. Or she was with me for 6 months, and then the rest she wasn't. Sorry.
And you're, looking back, fairly young still at the time, probably still figuring out how to be a dad in general.
When I got to Germany, in basic training, I turned 21. I remember it being a big deal. Or maybe 22, I don't remember. So yeah, I would have been 23, 24 years old, being a single dad in another country, completely by myself. No family. All of us had friends, but everyone had their own shit going on. So, like, I didn't have a whole lot of help. And there were times that a certain single E6 squad leader... who was also had kids but was divorced, would have me watch his kid on my days off. So I would be on my day off with my kid, exhausted, by myself, babysitting his kid, because he didn't have anywhere to send his kid either. And that was a lot. That was, and at the end
it's fucking crazy, dude.
Yeah, at the end when I got out, he actually apologized to me. He was like, dude, I didn't know how, like stretched thin and, like, on your last leg you were. I was like, yeah, dude, like, I don't know what the fuck I was doing. I'm a child. Raising a child in another country. Yeah.
You said the welfare, and people don't talk about this and maybe not even know that there is a welfare system inside the military. Like, you can apply, you could be a full-blown military service member and apply for welfare. I don't know the name of it. It has a name. Where you get food stamps in the military.
I think that is
WICS. Crazy to me. WICS program, yeah. So WICS is a military welfare program. How dare us want to actually pay our service members more? We'll just give them welfare instead.
And the military pushes you to do it. I remember my squad leader at the time, because they go over your finances. And that's something a lot of people don't understand about the military either, is I would have to print my paycheck out, show it to my squad leader, and then have a list of all of my monthly bills laid out and show him how I was going to pay my bills for the month. And, in that, I, being a single parent, was told to go to the WICS office and go, like, fill out the forms and get accepted. And I did it for a couple of weeks, and I felt really shitty about it, and I stopped doing it. But they literally would give you, like, a check. And it was like a paper check that was for a certain amount of money. And then at the commissary, there were little things that said WIX on them, W-I-X. And they were little tags next to food. And you could get milk, cheese, eggs, like basically the essentials. Like it was all like whole grain cereal. So you weren't getting like Fruit Loops or Lucky Charms. You were getting like, shredded mini wheats or whatever. The good cereal, right? And you could get that stuff, but it always felt shitty. And maybe it was just me having more pride than I should have. But I remember, like, I was making, like $1,600 a month as an E3 or something crazy. Like, it was always super low, and not having money for stuff and being broke all the fucking time. And that's a huge thing. And then when you hear like government shutdowns, you're like, dude, you're gonna shut down someone's paycheck who makes $30,000 a year and is supporting 3 kids because that's about what you made at the time, and you're not gonna give them a paycheck and just say like, you'll be all right. No, that's insane.
It is, and it's the equivalent of like the scholarships with college sports people, college athletes. Oh, well, you're getting an education, you're getting a scholarship. Bitch, I'm hungry though. Like, what are you talking about?
Yep.
And it's the same with, well, I don't want to say the same, but you get it. Where I am in the military, I'm in the Army, legit, and I'm still having to be on welfare. How does that
we weren't
sense?
Even eligible to get dining cards for a while, if I remember right. Like, we had to pay. We had to pay at the DFAC. We weren't even allowed to get free food at the dining facility.
Yeah, because I think it was because we were getting whatever the supplemental for food because we were working like shift work or something like that.
Yeah, because we were shifts and there was the chance that we would work mids and not be able to have the dining facility. But it was like $30 that they'd give you. It was never enough money.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It was the worst.
But hey, we need all those F-35s made pronto.
Exactly.
We need those.
And we need all those parking lots mopped in the rain.
But hey, we're going to pay you. We're going to give you free housing.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you know what? The Army was, as much as I kind of shit on it now and can talk bad about it, it's like talking bad about like your big brother or your little brother, right? Like, I can talk shit about it, but no one else fucking better, unless you were in that same experience that I was in. But I look back at my time in the military and I love every second of it. I had a blast. Like,
Same.
There were shitty times, there were times that sucked, but the times like hanging out with you and with all the guys, right? Like, everyone hanging out in the barracks, or Halloween parties at someone's house, or you just barbecues in general, because every weekend someone had a barbecue, whether it was in Heidelberg housing or it was in whatever housing unit or housing area. Someone was doing something all the time, and we had such a good group of dudes, and I'm sure most military units would say the same thing, right? Like, we were all pretty bonded, we were all pretty close, we were all, shit went down, we all had each other's back, for the most part, and that part of the military I abso-fucking-lutely love. It was better than anything I've been a part of. It was better than law enforcement. But there's just something about it that you can't ever let go of, right? And it's like, I've had jobs that I never think about, regular jobs that I held longer than my time in the military, that I don't think about any time during my day. But there isn't a moment in my day that doesn't happen at least once where I hear something, or I smell something, or I see something that instantly brings me back to Germany, or instantly brings me back to standing in formation. And that's, to me, the coolest thing in the world. It
really is, and it took me a while to get there to actually appreciate it, because I held on to so much like bitterness of not getting to deploy and not getting to have that like G.I. Joe, that letdown of my expectations. And then I realized, man, I'm missing out on all this crazy cool, the gift of getting to be in the military. It really is awesome, and that's kind of why I decided to write the book, because I was like you. Shit would just pop into my head every day. Like, oh, that's ridiculous. No way.
Dude,
I started like gradually writing them down.
And it was so much fun, like little weird shit that like doesn't make sense to anybody else, but it made sense to us in those moments. Like, I think one day all the guys on shift tried to see how many chicken nuggets we could eat. And then it turned into, well, we don't want to do it. How many can Logan eat? And then it was, Logan ate 65 chicken nuggets and now he's throwing up in the PMO bathroom. Or it would be, hey, Logan, I'll give you $10, and then everyone else chimes in, so now it's like $70, $80 to drink a cup of toilet water. Cool, let's do it. Let's do it. Like, there was so much of that stuff going on in the background. Or like, even on patrol, like, there was, and another name I'll bring up because I love the guy, Andy Hartford. Andrew Hartford was my 5 patrol partner so often that we would just fuck with each other. There was a time where I was driving down the road, Andy was driving down the road. This is the worst thing that you could ever do. He's driving down the road in Mines Castell, so we were just leaving a security check. We were on a German road, not near a military base, in a fully marked American cop car, and he's doing probably 60 miles, on the road, whatever their speed limit was, 50, 60 on a regular street. And I remember that him and I were kind of bickering back and forth, but we were good. We were like brothers bicker, right? And I was just frustrated with him, and I looked at him, and I screamed at the top of my lungs and pulled the e-brake on the car as we were doing 60 down the street.
Yeah.
And I remember him looking back at me and screaming, and us like swerving in the car, and then we stopped, and we both just die laughing and continue on with our day like it never happened. Same Andy Hartford, same guy. We picked up a drunk dude from the hospital who shit in the backseat of our car as we were transporting him. And then, just imagine, me and Andy just back and forth to this guy, just one-liner after one, just roasting this fucking guy. And it started with like, do you smell that? And he was like, no. Like, oh man, you poopied in your pants, like talking to him like a baby and just being dicks. And it was just so funny for me and him that we did that all the time. And those are the memories that I remember. Me and you on 5 Patrol, you eating a big bowl of chicken, rice, and mustard. That's the shit that sticks in my head from our time in the military that, to me, I hope I never forget because it was so much fucking fun. It was like camp.
Dude, that's a perfect way of putting it. It was like camp. But I felt like I couldn't say that shit because people had expectations of the stories that I was supposed to tell them about what the military was like. I'm just like, what's a firefight like? What's it like getting shot at? What's it like shooting someone? Those are the stories that people expect to hear because, media and books, all the SEAL team books, all that shit, which I fucking love. Don't get me wrong. But that's not the real shit, really, if you think about it. 98% of us have stories like this.
Yeah, and I mean
90% of our best.
90% of our action calls that we would take in the military was an alarm in some building in the middle of fucking nowhere going off that we didn't even have access to. I don't know how many of those calls that I got to where like, hey, I'm standing out front of the building, I don't have access in, and I can see no one's here. They're like, cool, just clear. Okay, I guess we're gonna say this is fine. Like, so many times we had to do that stuff. But, like, that's what the military is, and that's what people don't understand, is that there's so much standing in formation, so much mopping and sweeping, so much, like, mopping and sweeping that doesn't make sense. Like, I think you mentioned in the book, your first day at the unit, they're doing, whatever, barracks beautification or whatever we called it, and you guys were in cleaning the kitchens and stuff. But the kitchen would take you 15 minutes to clean, but they would leave you there cleaning for hours. And you couldn't not.
Hours.
And you had to look like you were cleaning because at any given moment, someone would walk by to check on you. And if you weren't mopping or sweeping or actively like scrubbing something, you'd get fucked up.
Isn't that crazy? Just cleaning just to clean. But that was where the real coolness came. That's where like the camp feeling came.
Right. That's
just
where
like you start shooting the shit. Yeah. It was like a locker room all over again.
Yeah. And that's exactly what it was. It was a locker room where we didn't care. Like, we didn't judge each other. We made fun of everybody. I didn't care if you were big-ass Shotwell with all the muscles who could beat the shit out of me at any given moment. I'm coming after you and I'm making fun of you. I don't care if you're Johnny Billups and you're the only, or one of the only black guys in our group. I'm making fun of you. And it was the same thing. Like, if you weren't making fun of me back, then are we okay? Is there a problem? Like, that, I think how we all kind of ran things. It's like, ooh, Brian didn't talk shit to me when he walked past me in the hallway. Like, you good, dude? And he's like, yeah, man, I'm just walking. Like, that's how. Aaron Vanatter. Aaron Vanatter is another person who I know is listening to this, because if he knows you and I are doing this, he will be listening. Me and that guy had so much fucking fun that it probably should have been illegal. Like, we talked the craziest shit. Dude, I remember trying to say things to people just to get them to leave a room, or me and him trying to make each other laugh and, like, pushing the envelope, but so bad that we were talking about, like, having sex with the new guy's grandma just to mess, like, just to get under his skin, right? Just the nastiest, vilest shit that we could think to say to somebody. We were saying it just to push our own envelope. And I think that's, like, if we go back to, like, me doing stand-up comedy, or trying to do stand-up comedy, that's where it all originated from, was just trying to push the envelope so far to make people laugh. And most of the time, like, I would say shit, and it was the first time I was hearing it, too. Like, I wasn't pre-planning things in the Army to say to people. Like, all the shit-talking that we did was just right off the tongue. And I was hearing it for the first time that anyone else was. And sometimes it was wildly offensive. And sometimes it wasn't. It was just funny.
Yeah. Dude, I think my only PTSD going back to just cleaning and all that shit, when I got out and was like in our apartment, I was always so nervous that somebody was going to come knocking on my door. Always. Because you know what it's like. Probably even living not in the barracks. Somebody was always fucking coming to your door.
All the time.
All the time. Hey, we need you to come sign this. We need you down at the office. What?
Yep.
It's 11 p.m.
Yep.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
I was so nervous. It took me a while to fucking shake that feeling of, nobody's coming?
Do you remember just the first time out of the Army that you smelled Fabuloso and how you felt about it?
I still have feelings about it.
I do too.
Because our cleaning crew, the ladies that clean our house, use Fabuloso, and I have feelings about it, dude.
Yeah,
I don't.
It brings back some memories.
It makes me kind of nervous, and I should be cleaning. Give me that mop. I should be the one.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, how many times you fucking mop that?
Right?
Oh, that's so funny, Fabuloso.
How many times did you pour Fabuloso on the ground and then walk over it and it was sticky because you didn't water it down because you wanted it to smell clean for hours? Yep.
Yeah.
Always.
How about in the barracks? We couldn't use the dishwasher because can't be trusted to use the dishwasher. I guess.
I didn't know that. That's news to me.
Oh, couldn't use the dishwasher. No way, dude.
What?
This may have been like after you had moved like into kind of real people housing. Yeah, we couldn't use the dishwasher.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's wild.
No hot plates, no cooking. I had a microwave.
I remember because I remember someone had one and got in trouble, so they took hot plates away from people. You couldn't have a George Foreman grill in your room. I think they let us use them in the kitchen, but you couldn't have them in your room. What else? There was all kinds of weird stuff. Roommates were always weird. My roommate was super weird. He actually got kicked out of the Army.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he popped out on a P test. He wasn't there very long. He was one of the original like 512 guys or whatever that other unit was that was there before us that deployed.
Oh, 212?
212.
Yeah.
That's what it was. He was one of those guys and was into Dungeons and Dragons more than I'd ever seen anyone in my life. I remember getting in and he was the armorer. So he would leave to go open the arms room 3 times a day. But in between that, he was in his underwear with his brown military top on, military issue underwear, at the foot of my bed because that's where he felt his fucking computer desk needed to be. And he would sit there till like 4 a.m. playing all Dungeons and Dragons or whatever his games were. World of Warcraft, that's what it was. He was a WoW guy.
Oh,
and
yeah.
He had this like virtual assistant that would pop up on his computer. It was some like naked chick that like every hour she would take off an article of clothing. So I'd be in the middle of bed, he'd be in the middle of like, all right guys, we need our wizards over here and this over here. And then I just hear this woman come on and be like, it's 3:30 and like undo her blouse or something. I'm like, what kind of a fucking clown show am I living in right now? Like, I need out of here as quickly as I can. And that's, like, what I always tried to push getting out of the barracks, because he was so insane.
Barracks, that is a crazy thought. Barracks roommates, you don't get to pick at all. And
It's like going to college with crackheads and being in a dorm room with them. Like, you don't know who you're getting. You don't know what's going to happen. It's the most wild shit. I mean, and then the things that people would do in the barracks. Like, we had a guy in our unit that got drunk one night and thought his laptop was his toilet and pissed on it. Like, crazy shit would happen in the barracks.
Oh, yeah. I reached out to Lieutenant Seaman. Shout out to him. He was always be my LT.
He was my favorite.
Hey, I'm the best. I was like, hey, I'm writing this book. Do you have any stories from the barracks or any stories in general? And he wrote back, that one time that somebody thought Bacardi 151 wasn't flammable.
Oh,
and that was it.
I remember that.
So, barracks.
I remember my platoon sergeant would always try to get Lieutenant Seaman to ride 5 patrol with me, so it was Car Cox Seaman, or Seaman Cox. Yeah, that's where your tax dollars were going, people, was to us trying to figure out how we could make Seaman Cox a real thing.
Yeah.
And we did, often.
Oh,
He rode with
you
me
and
quite a
him?
bit.
He rode you quite a
Yeah,
bit, or
yeah.
rode you or rode with you?
I mean, whatever your imagination wants.
We have to dig at him because I think he is a legit rocket scientist
Oh,
now. For
legitimately the smartest guy I've ever met, and just like, but like
yeah,
dumb smart. Like, he would just do things that you're like, dude, you're the smartest guy I know. Like, why? What are you doing? And it was never bad. It was always like goofy little shit. Like, without
yeah.
blowing him up too much, like his kids' middle names, hilarious. But like, what are you doing? Do
What
you
are
remember
they?
those?
What are they?
So,
No.
all right. He had one that was Godzilla.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, his kids' middle names were just awesome. It's like, dude, can we do that? Like, are we allowed to do that? Like, because you're smarter than me, so I guess we are.
Yeah,
Yeah, all the time.
man.
He would do stuff to make
I
me
mean,
crack up all the time.
talk about if there was one person that deserved to not be in the situation we were in, it was that guy. Like that was what we were
100%.
using that guy's intelligence for, was leading us dumbasses.
Yeah, West Point messed up there. He should have been in an intelligence group, group making bombs, or doing something like I think he had like a chemical engineer or mechanical engineering degree. Like,
Yeah,
but like,
from fucking West Point.
yeah, like dude was super smart guy.
Super smart. All right, dude. Anything else before we wrap
No,
up?
that's it. Join the army. Go army. Beat Navy.
I actually, this is probably all these stories and shit that we're telling. I think that's just probably what the army is now. There's no war, like big wars,
No,
to speak of
not yet.
recently.
I mean, maybe in the next few days we could be in one, but
Probably pretty soon.
right now, no, you're right. I mean, it is just a bunch of people fucking around on a garrison somewhere, doing all
Yep.
of the dumb shit that we've already done.
Yep.
100%.
No, I think, and I like that. That's good for America.
I do too. And you know what? If more people, and I'm not a recruiter, I'm not affiliated to the army, but if more people went through what we went through, I think you'd take shit with a grain of salt a little bit more and just kind of let stuff roll off your back instead of getting so pissed off all the time. Because the dumb shit that we saw in the military is nothing compared to the dumb shit that you see as a civilian.
100%. And it's funny because I do like some speaking engagements now, which is crazy, but I use these stories as like serious life talk,
Yeah.
which is kind of a bummer because I just want to basically do stand-up comedy to these companies, but I slip some in. But the thing is, expectations and unmet expectations of, you can like sit in the shittiness of having like a big letdown, like thinking you're going to war or thinking the military is going to be a certain way, or you can let loose and like see the gifts in that unmet expectation and, like you said, make it how you wanted to be a military police officer.
Yep.
And realize like, damn, I'm hanging out with a bunch of really fucking cool dudes and I'm never going to get this feeling again,
Right.
probably ever.
Yep. And we all had
But-
the same thoughts and the same mentality, and it was great.
Yeah, but if you don't realize that, then you'll probably just be fucking bitter for your whole life.
We know some of those guys. We know people, guys and gals, right, that got out of the military and they just couldn't let it go, or they just held on too tight, or they were so wound tight in the military that they didn't ever enjoy it. And now they're out and they never got to see the fruits of what they did, and they never got to see how fun what they were doing actually was.
Yeah, and they compare themselves to what other people did and think that that's
Exactly.
it's not okay if they didn't do that. And
If you
so they
don't
draw
think,
forerunners with.
Yeah, and if you don't think that the Navy SEALs are sitting around 98% of the time, or the Delta Force guys or the Rangers are sitting around telling dick jokes 90% of the time, playing grab ass, you're fucking wrong. Those tip of the spear guys train hard, but they also fucking goof around it just as hard as anybody else. But when it's time to go do mission stuff, that's why we weren't them, because they went in and just kicked everybody's ass. And,
Yes.
But 99% of the time, they were telling dick jokes just like we were.
Yes, and that community has been the biggest supporters of mine, which was kind of scary at first putting this book out. I was just thinking, man, I hope that they see this book for what it is. But I've gotten so many messages from those guys of just like, dying laughing. Damn, this is crazy.
Well, and
This is awesome.
those guys have seen enough real life shit to understand that your book of fun stories from your time as a Garrison MP is exactly what it is. It is a book about fun stories when you were a Garrison MP. It's not you trying to shit on them. It's not you trying to, we're not having a dick measuring contest here of who did more. We know you guys did more, but you told dick jokes like us and we all had a great time.
Yep. Yep. All right, dude. I'm getting out of here.
All right, man. Thank you so much. This was so much fun.
Let's do this. Dude, let's do it more for real. We could go on for hours.
I have so many more stories. So, Shoddy B, whenever you need me, let me know. I'm here.
Let's do it. All right, brother.
Bye. Thank you.
See ya. Yeah, dude.